Hey everybody, what's going on? Heatsoul here with another Master Duel video for y'all. So today we're going to be taking another look at Ignister. I've definitely been very much inspired to come back to this deck after watching some of those finals matches for the Master Circuit series, particularly the user I Wish I Was Dead, who had a fantastic showing, especially in the top 8 there. Definitely was like, you know, itching to try out Ignister once again for myself as soon as their match ended. I definitely was going back to the drawing board with my build. And indeed, the last build I showed off, while capable of doing some pretty cool things, I found in my research has actually not necessarily been the optimal way to play Ignister with the Mathmech engine. So the last build that I played featured Super Factorial, and I showed off going for a 5k Arrival Cybrse as well as a Super Factorial setup. And while that is nice, especially the fact that you can do it off of, a one-card combo, it does pose a bit of a downside in that it takes up quite a bit of not only main deck, but more importantly, extra deck space. That Laplation, fitting that into the extra deck, is actually pretty huge. I definitely did not respect how tight the extra deck of Ignister was before I tried to make that whole engine work in the deck as well. Plus, you also have to play Nabla, which is not like super great, definitely not ideal. And if you draw it, it becomes that much more difficult to go into that line. So I ultimately decided to drop it, and it seems to be that's like what people kind of across the board are doing. Again, I was looking at just like a lot of the more recently submitted, whether it be to Master Duel Meta or to the Master Circuit series, a lot of the more recently submitted Ignister decks, and yeah, it definitely seems like that not many of them are playing Laplation and Super Factorial in the main. But that doesn't mean that the Mathmech engine does not have a place in Ignister. It's definitely a great extender engine for the deck, and we actually have a game coming up here that I'm going to show you where I had a really mediocre setup and didn't have a way to get into Arrival Cybrse at all. But because of exactly playing the Mathmech engine, I was actually able to find a way to go into a 6k Arrival Cybrse that I would not have been able to find otherwise. So definitely look forward to that in the games coming up. Of course, I can't promise to show quite as exciting of gameplay as we saw in the top cut of the Master Circuit series, but I'm hoping it's going to be nice and helpful and informative all the same. Let's see, what else I want to cover with this build. I really would have liked to have played Forbidden Droplets, but I decided for Ranked Ladder, I like Imperms and Veilers a little bit more than the Droplets there. Also, Ignister Island, I've really thought about going down to one copy for quite a while now, but there's something about it, I just can't, for some reason I just can't quite bring myself to do it. I just always think about that, like, what if they Cosmic Cyclone your Ignister Island, Cosmic Cyclone, while I personally am not a huge fan of the card, you can't deny that it's seeing a lot of play, and it's been seeing a lot of play for a while now. So, yeah, the idea of getting your Ignister Island Cosmic Cyclone is more than a bit scary to me. So, that's one of the main reasons I've been still rocking 2 copies of it here. And then in extra deck, we actually do have a new addition in the form of Security Dragon. This is not just because I saw Security Dragon bounce an Accesscode Talker in the finals, but actually, again, from doing research on a lot of the Mathmech Ignister decks, it seems like the Security Dragon is a pretty standard inclusion in it, and it's pretty easy to see why too. Being able to bounce any monster your opponent controls just for being co-linked is a pretty easy condition for this deck to fulfill, and is a very powerful effect as well. Now, I don't know, there's so many different ways you can play Ignister and Mathmech in this format. Yeah, I was just thinking to myself, like, I could see myself trying a Code Talker engine, and that's why I hesitated just now. I was like, a Code Talker engine, what, Ignister or Mathmech? And so I'm thinking, like, it could be either, I don't know. I think it's really cool that Cybrse decks all kind of get to interact with each other. It's mostly because pretty much every Cybrse card has the lock condition of, like, you can only special summon Cybrse monsters for the rest of the turn, but it's just, I think it's really cool to see, like, a meshing of archetypes. It's one of the things that I think has always kind of fascinated me about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Is the ability to, like, so exactly put in just how much of a deck's engine that you need in order to make some explosive plays in an entirely different deck. I just think it's super rad, but Yeah, I don't know that I have much else to say about this build. It's relatively standard, as I like to keep my ladder builds. I don't tend to get too adventurous with the ladder builds to not only make them accessible to everybody watching here on the channel, but also because when you're playing on ranked ladder, all you really need is an above 50% win rate, and you can just kind of get away with making generalized plays and using generalized builds. But now that I'm more interested in the tournament scene, there's definitely a lot more variety for that. So if I was going to play Ignister in like a future MCS or in another tournament, I might not necessarily play 3 Imperm and 2 Valor. But I think for the purposes of just laddering, this build is not only very fun, but also very effective. So let's go ahead and break it down card by card, as we always do, and then we'll go ahead and look at some games. So for our build, we're playing 2 Effect Valor, 3 Maxx, 3 Achichi at Ignister, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 1 Bururu at Ignister, 1 Mathmech Sigma, 1 Mathmech Addition, 3 Pikari at Ignister, 1 Doyon at Ignister, 3 Mathmech Circular, 1 Danmari at Ignister, 1 Gatchiri at Ignister, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 3 Cynet Mining, 1 Mathmech Equation, 3 I Meet You, 2 Ignister A.I., 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 1 A.I.dle Reborn, and then 3 Infinite Impermanence. That'll round out the main deck. Now for the extra deck, we've got 1 Wind Pegasus at Ignister, 1 Primathmech Alembertain, 1 Light Dragon at Ignister, 2 Dark Infant at Ignister, 1 Security Dragon, 1 Cybrse Wicckid, 1 Update Jammer, 2 Splash Mage, 1 Transcode Talker, 1 Dark Templar at Ignister, 1 Decode Talker Heatsoul, 1 Accesscode Talker, and then finally 1 the Arrival Cybrse at Ignister. That's going to round out our list. Let's take a look at those games. Our first game here is going to be against Adamancipator. Jeez, wow, I clicked on it not 10 seconds ago and I almost completely blanked on what I played against. That's sad. Sad but expected for me. In any case here, looking at my opening hand, it's kind of meh, but we did at least open Circular, so I'm going to start with that. Okay, so one cool thing I actually really like about playing the Mathmech engine in Ignister is that when your opponent sees you activate Circular and dump Sigma, they're always, pretty much always, going to automatically assume you're on Mathmech. And it's funny, a lot of people will go really out of your way, or out of their way to, like, negate your Circular or negate an Alembertain you make, and they're just like, alright, normal summon Ignister monster. And then, you know, you can feel the, like, ah, shit moment from your opponent when you do that, but no real good Ignister monster to summon here. So I'm just going to special Circular, you know, add the Equation. That's the only Mathmech spell trap we're playing, but it's obviously a very good extender. Gonna overlay for the Alembertain here. And really, with this hand, I'm just thinking, like, yeah, I'll just make a Heatsoul and pass. It's not great, but it's at least something, you know? So, gonna grab the Addition, use that. Alembertain, link these away for the Splash Mage. I actually, now that I think about it, I didn't necessarily need to make Alembertain. That really was mostly a reflex from playing Mathmech and needing the Sigma in the graveyard, but, I mean, it's definitely not a bad thing to have the Sigma in the graveyard, I guess, for the next turn anyway. Alright, so yeah, I'm gonna use the Heatsoul draw, and then I was like, wait a second, I saw my draw was Pikari, and I saw it was glowing blue, and I was like, hold on, did I not have my normal summon, or did I still have my normal summon, rather? And I actually still had my normal summon for the turn, so I was like, oh, alright, cool, I just have a 6k Arrival Cybrse then, awesome, and that is exactly what I'm gonna do. This is one of the reasons I really like having the Mathmech engine in Ignister. The fact that it's not only a great extender engine, but like it doesn't require even the normal summon initially. Like as you can see here, I went for Heatsoul entirely without normal summoning, and then from there was able to find the rest of my plays. Now, because I already summoned Heatsoul, I actually can't add Achichi off of I Meet You, but it's not going to be that big of a deal because I already have the materials to just summon Cybrse Wicckid here, so I'll just add Doyon instead. And basically now, I'm picking up at the standard Ignister combo, like from the step, like from the Wicckid step. Which again is wild, because like, I didn't even open a hand that even resembled something that could make this, but I mean, that's definitely the power of Ignister, is the fact that you get to make such a powerful boss and a huge combo off of literally just one card makes all the difference here. And of course, between the Gatchiri, the A.I.dle Reborn, and the Mathmech Equation, I have extenders for days here. It's so much advantage too. Like, look at this, I have 7 cards in hand, notwithstanding all the cards I have on my field right now. On turn 1, it's nuts. I love this deck. I really love how it feels to combo off with this deck. It's very satisfying. Yeah, so now I'm going to make the second Dark Infant, use its effect to, or first use Dark Templar's effect, and then chain Dark Infant, bounce it out of the zone, and make it Divine. And then I'll be able to bring back Pikari, Bururu, and Doyon. Now, I did actually make a bit of a misplay here in the way that I Synchro Summoned. I Synchroed away Pikari. I actually should have Synchroed away Doyon, because now I have 2 different Dark Monsters, and that's a little bit awkward. As I go to use Bururu's effect, Special Pikari. Now, I guess to be fair though, I would have had 2 Darks anyway, because I can't summon Bururu off of Bururu. So, never mind, it would have been the same either way. I thought that was a misplay. I don't think it actually was, though. Yeah, I went to summon Gatchiri here, and this is where I realized, like, oh shit, I still have 2 Dark Monsters. So, that's fine, though. We can definitely play around this. I'm just going to make Splash Mage, and then use A.I.dle Reborn on the Pikari there. Because I've already used the Splash Mage this turn, so I can't use the second one. But there, now we can go for the 6k Arrival Cybrse. I know what you're thinking, like, or what some of you may be thinking anyway, which is like, oh, a 5k towers, a 6k towers, what's the difference? The difference is actually Accesscode Talker, which is, with Mathmech's prevalence, a lot more common in this format than it's been in some of the previous formats we've seen. So I think it actually does really matter making the 6k Arrival Cybrse over the 5k. But with the 6k Arrival Cybrse, I mean, there's really not a whole lot that's going to be able to stop it here, unless our opponent has the the white woman jump scare in the form of Underworld Goddess. It's such a funny meme. Let's see, yeah, there's something Roxy's here, so I'm like, it's probably, given that it's exactly Roxy's, it's probably going to be Adamancipator. There is actually a Prank Kids variant of Mathmech running around that I've seen. I still have been meaning to do more research into, because I've been meaning to play more Prank Kids in general. I don't know. I can't help but wonder if maybe it's one of those decks like Adamancipator that people were sleeping on, and then it just got popular all of a sudden, and then people were like, oh yeah, this deck is still good. I feel like that's the case with Prank Kids too, but maybe less so, who knows. But there is that duel against Mathmech there. Again, I really liked that game because we're able to somehow, at the very, what I thought was going to be the very end of the turn, then we top deck Pikari off of Heatsoul. It's like, oh, never mind, we just get to go off. So, very, very nice application of the Mathmech engine there. Let's go and take a look at the next game. Alright, for this game, we've got an @Ignister mirror match. It's a pretty close mirror match. Our builds are pretty closely aligned. I think the major difference is that they're playing red reboots, which I am not. I'm going to be taking the second turn here, so just like with Mathmech, I'm more thinking about going for an Accesscode OTK rather than a long drawn-out combo here. I've got the Maxx when they reveal Sigma, but they unfortunately have an Ash Blossom. Do still have the Imperm. Seeing Sigma, I do assume I'm up against Mathmech. I am going to try to keep a more open mind about it, as should you, but of course then once the Bururu comes down, then I know it's Ignister. But yeah, it definitely pays to keep an open mind when you see a Mathmech card in this format. It can very easily still be Ignister. There's actually a lot of different decks that can use Mathmech engines, so yeah, anyway, I'm going to use the Imperm on the Dark Infant here, because they only have 2 cards left in their hands, so, like, they can still make plays, but I don't imagine they're going to be making anything too impactful. And yeah, they're just, looks like going to go for a Heatsoul here. Which, I mean, to be fair, is not the worst card to end on, really. There've actually been a decent number of games, not just with Ignister, but a lot of different decks where I feel pretty good about, honestly, just ending on a Heatsoul. It's obviously dependent on the situation and what's in your hand, but... Okay, looks like the opponent actually did have an Ignister Island in their hand. They were just lacking something to add off of it, or to summon off of it. Yeah, they got that I Meet You down after the... Either that or they drew Ignister A.I. That could have been the case too. It was one of the two cards. But yeah, here they're actually not able to extend too much after doing that. I don't know why, actually, now that I think about it. I guess they just didn't have another... Well, they didn't have another, Yeah, they didn't have another Ignister monster in their hand, looks like. They got the I Meet You back, but of course you only use one of these per turn, so... Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense now. Alright, so looking at my hand here, the second Achichi draw is not great, but I mean, we still have Circular, plus, you know, Achichi plays, and this is kind of what I'm talking about. I mean, granted, Call By is probably mostly going to be used against Sigma no matter what here, but I really like being able to start with Mathmech plays and get your opponent to you know, just draw out some amount of disruption through those, and then you get to be like, surprise normal summon that Ignister monster. And here, just the normal summoning of Achichi was enough to get my opponent to concede. I guess, you know, being somebody who was also playing this build, they know as soon as that Achichi comes down, it's over. Again, one of the biggest draws and hugest strengths of Ignister is its ability to close duels and combo hugely off with literally just a single normal summon. So there's that game. Let's go and take a look at the next one. Here we have, once again, another match against Mathmech. This one's going to be against a Code Talker variant. Again, like I said earlier, I think it is really cool that all the different Cybrse decks get to just, like, commingle. And it really feels like it was Mathmech Circular that really helped that be the case. I mean, to be fair, when I say commingle, it really is every other Cybrse deck throwing in Mathmechs, but at the same time, I think archetypal blending is one of the coolest parts of Yu-Gi-Oh! So I'm a fan of it. Plus, like, Circular, yeah, it's a grossly, like, powerful card for an archetype, but the archetype as a whole does not feel particularly unfair. So I'm liking this meta quite a bit. In any case here, our opponent's going to go first. They're going to Cynet Mining. I'll Ash Blossom it. I don't always Ash Blossom the Cynet Mining, but it's not really, like, terrible to do that because you're going to get Inherent +1 when you do that. It also can be dependent sometimes on what they discard off of it. The discarding of Diameter tells me they either have a hand where the rest of their hand is disruption, so they figure if I negate the Cynet Mining, they at least have 3 pieces of disruption, because they can't do anything with Diameter anyway, or they have multiple Diameter. Between the two scenarios, I think the former is a lot more likely than the latter, so I feel pretty good about using Ash Blossom on the Diameter here, and feeling like they're not going to have really much else going on in hand, because even if they do end up having Circular in hand, like, a lot of people, myself included when possible, when I have a decent card to discard, I like to throw out the Cynet Mining, even if I have Circular in hand, just to bait out some form of a response. But if my opponent, if that is the case here, I don't think they would throw out a Diameter. I would definitely throw out even something like an Imperm or an Ash Blossom before a Diameter, because Diameter plus Circular is plays for days. That's a hand rep on turn 1. But anyway, that's why I'm going to Ash Blossom the Cynet Mining. And they had a Crossout Designator anyway, so guess what? It ultimately just didn't matter. But I know one of the most common things I get asked is, like, when to use Disruption and what makes me use Disruption in certain situations. So I thought I'd just go into a little bit of detail there. But we've got Maxx, so even though that Cynet Mining did resolve, I'm not super fussed about it, because Mathmech is definitely one of those decks that really cannot make a significant amount of plays without giving you, like, at least 3 draws. Now, granted, I do think... I think this was right on my opponent's part. Because they already had Diameter in the graveyard, I think giving me 2 extra draws, because I was going to get 1 draw no matter what, I think giving me 2 extra draws... Now, okay, let me slow down for a second here. I think giving me 2 extra draws in order to set up the 3 in graveyard and have Super Factorial in hand, I definitely agree with that. Summoning this addition here, I'm definitely not as up on. My opponent's playing really hard into my Maxx on their turn 1, so, like, they can't close out the duel here. Yes, this is what, 1, 2... it was potentially going to be 3, but I just decided to imperm the Splash Mage here. Because I know they're just going to go for a Heatsoul, and I could just not deal with that. But I think it's pretty wild that they were going to give me so many extra draws. Now this Nibiru was definitely not necessary, and obviously if I had known they'd had Maxx, I wouldn't have used it. I definitely debated during the actual duel whether or not I was going to use it anyway, but I ultimately decided to throw it out just to like maybe have a slightly better chance of OTKing here. Just to have like an additional 3,000 attack points on board. Although to be fair, if I use Circular, I can only attack with 1 monster anyway. I don't know. You could make a lot of different arguments here. That's actually why I'm not summoning Circular just yet, is because I'm gonna first see how much let's see what all I can do before I commit to Circular. Is my thought process here. Yeah, so they get off the Super Factorial, and the Droplet, I don't really know what's going on with that, honestly. Oh, it was to negate my search. Duh, never mind. Because then they can just send the Super Factorial for free. Right. Yep. Yep, so here comes the Placian. It does have a diameter negate behind it, but we also have a lot of cards in our hand thanks to our opponent, so I'm not super concerned about having to play through all this here. Yeah, hitting that Pikari at Ignister doesn't really do anything because I have I Meet You. But then my opponent actually negates the I Meet You, which I really wasn't expecting, but I'm elated by, because like the I Meet You was going to be a whole part of trying to provoke the opponent into using the diameter negate on the Placian. But if they just want to straight up negate the I Meet You, that's totally fine, because I definitely have more than enough in here to just OTK my opponent. The funny thing here too is, like, not only can I make Update Jammer Accesscode OTK, but I also get to even throw in this Gatchiri at Ignister, which is going to make my Accesscode unaffected by any card effects. So it's basically like a walking OTKing Towers machine. And you can see through all that, I still did not end up having to use the Circular in my hand. I'm pretty sure I didn't use Circular at all, right? Yeah, because this is turn 2. Yeah, I don't think I used Circular at all. Honestly, the most of the reason I didn't use it by this point was because there wasn't really a reason to. Well, I couldn't, that's right, because I already had Addition and Sigma. So that's why I didn't use Circular. I knew there was some, outside reason beyond just, like, wanting to attack with more than 1 monster. But in any case, yeah, we've got our double attacking unaffected Accesscode now finishing our opponent off. So GG's to our Mathmech opponent. We have one more duel to take a look at. Let's jump straight into it. And our last opponent is going to be another Cybrse matchup. Opponent is once again on Code Talker variant of Mathmech. This opponent is definitely leaning more into the Code Talker aspect, though, with cards like Cybrse Gadget and Cynet Codec, or whatever it's called. The continuous spell. That one. It is Cynet Codec, okay. And then Lady Debug, stuff like that, yep. Lady Debug is going to allow them to get the code generator here. I was going to say they must have already have the microcoder in hand, because it's usually the add off of Lady Debug, but that will allow them to go for Code Talker inverted. Now for my hand, I'm rocking this Nibiru, so I feel totally fine here. I'm just going to let them combo off for a little while. One of the main things I'm looking for when I try to figure out when I want to Nibiru is keeping in mind all the stuff they've added, and also if they've used their normal summon. My opponent has already used their normal summon, and now that I've seen them use the Circular as well as all the stuff that they've added, I'm feeling pretty good about dropping a Nibiru relatively soon here. Now, it looks like they're going to send the Dotscaper and add a Gatchiri. And I think it's after specialing the Dotscaper is when I decided to go ahead and drop the Nibiru here. Because, like, I know they have Gatchiri, but Gatchiri has to negate a Cybrse monster. But they're actually playing Link Spider. Ah! This is actually one of many monsters I'd love to have in the extra deck if I had room in my Mathmech deck. But no, because they're playing Link Spider, they actually do still have plays with the Gatchiri here. So, yeah, I was not anticipating that. Especially for a this variant of Mathmech that's already having to play stuff like Code Talker inverted. I guess again it's more leaning into Code Talkers, so they must have just excluded some of the typical stuff you see in the Mathmech extra deck. Oh yeah, and here they end up going for oh no, sorry, that must be a different game I was thinking of. I thought they were going to go for an access code there, but no, they're going for a Heatsoul. This might actually be the same game though. They might still go for it. I don't remember. Ooh, you get to add subtraction off of Cynet codec. I didn't realize that. That's kind of cool. Okay, yeah, no, this is the game where they go for access code. I thought that was the case. Yeah, I really don't know why my opponent went for access code here. I mean, I get that they get to add something now off of Cynet codec, but they've used so much of their extra deck on this turn 1, and all for a microcoder they can't use again this turn. I don't know. I don't get it. I personally don't get the access code here. Like, yeah, I know they have the counter trap here, but I mean, you gotta figure that pretty much every deck right now can play through, multiple disruptions, including that counter trap, which they are going to use here on the circular. I think this is once again the case of my opponent thinking that I'm also on like a Mathmech focused deck, and I'm thinking like, oh, I get to conflict away the circular. They don't get to add they don't get to add off circular, and they won't be able to go for Alembertain now, and they can't get it off of Equation. That's great. But then it's like, I'm just like, okay, cool, normal summon Pikari at Ignister. Now, to be fair, my opponent did have Ash Blossom here, but I've already got the I Meet You in hand, so it did not even matter here. I personally, yeah, would have saved the Ash Blossom for the Dark Infant. To be fair, like, the Ignister Island is really not going to do a whole lot here. That's actually not necessarily true. Oh, that's right. This is the game. I forgot about this game. This is the game where I took a page out of I Wish I Was Dead's book and summoned a security dragon to bounce away my opponent's Accesscode Talker. Yeah, that's the play they did as well in top 8 of the MCS, so yeah, I want to thank them for allowing me to take a little maneuver out of their playbook there. But yeah, at this point I have a pretty easy road to the... Actually, do I have an easy road to the OTK here? Have I used my normal summon yet? Yeah, I have. So let's see, I'm going to summon the Doyon, get back the Pikari. Transcode's going to get back Splash Mage. Oh, that's right, yeah, I was wondering, I was trying to remember if I'd used Splash Mage's effect yet. But no, I hadn't. Oh, that's right, that's right. This looks really weird, because it's like, wait, weren't you talking about going for Jammer access code, and then you randomly go for a 4,000 Arrival Cybrse? That's right. During this game, at a certain stage there, I started getting my prompts for response from my opponent, and it was definitely well after the 5th summon. So, thinking my opponent had a Nibiru in hand, I was like, maybe I can try to go for an Arrival Cybrse if they'll let me, and they actually did. I think they thought that I was going to go for an update jammer there, and then once I dropped the access code, I think that's what they were waiting for them to play Nibiru. Which is usually right, but in this matchup, again, I was actually able to go for Arrival Cybrse at 4k there, which is definitely not going to get, Nibiru'd, so, at least I'm pretty sure anyway, unaffected, yeah. Because it's tributed by the effect of Nibiru. I don't know, actually. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Arrival Cybrse is unaffected by Nibiru. Well, I played operating under that assumption anyway. As well as operating under the assumption that my opponent had a Nibiru as well, so, yeah, they ultimately end up conceding, not able to get over the 4k towers. Again, that looks really weird. You're probably wondering, why didn't you just go for the update jammer? Again, during the actual duel, I started seeing prompts for my opponent to activate a card effect suddenly after not having that for a while, and I thought it was a Nibiru. That's what I was reading, so that's why I made that kind of weird-looking play there. But either way, that does allow us to cinch out the duel there. So let's go ahead and move now to our outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now. So without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.